caught Lock Haven, actually, inner city, was the fact of with the expenditures and settling debts in between cities was a better advantage for both cities, let alone not necessarily the independent, but the construction between the inner cities being done and managed and watched as a sense of overseeing correctly and making sure it's just not, a cheap wall being thrown up and whatnot. That would suffice the need of a pushy little river over there. So I'm just gonna video for a little bit. I'm not trying to let them know in video. But to get back to talking a little bit about what was going on, it's interesting. But anyway, on the course of the construction of the pretty much just holds water back. I'm not gonna keep saying dam, but a decent set of steps, a pavilion, two pumps here, and I think two pumps down the road there. Bridge that was redone. Got rid of the metal structure bridge. The other project, which was set for them not to do right away, but to do within with tax fees or tax money, it was to fix the bridge out by 180-220 to get that up to standards and pretty much safe to drive on, pave the road, keep the bridge maintenance. Railroad tracks were off limits, but if needed, they could chip in the sense of a little bit of cash. But the overall roundabouts expenditure list was they were $6 million to the good by the time the project was done. A lot of different features, steps that are actually bandstands, a little auditorium, a beach, a brand new bridge, a dam that got updated, a launch, boat launch, pavilion park, thingy-majiggy over there, which was there, but it was kind of sloppy, so went in there, put a pavilion, grass, and some things, small trees to keep it from going into the river. So, I mean, it's not too much to say. I mean, I can video it a little bit later. A runway, ramp, and the funny part is the beach that was actually to bring your boats up and launch your boats in a little bit easier fashion, but it was just easier to establish a boat launch over where the bridge was. That kept it away from what was a boat launch that turned into a beach. With this process being started in 1980, I think it was late 80s and 1990s, which somewhere around, I think, the end construction was 1993-94. Which it went up pretty quick, pretty easy. I had to get rid of a few things. Down there, I know you can't see, but there was a pump in the water that guy kept blowing out the city's power. So that got removed, replaced. Like I said, you saw one of them, and I think the second one I have on camera. Roughly, I'm not going to even say how long this is, but it's for a decent stretch, plus lighting. Set in the same time that the dike or the dam went. I actually said dike, but because the dam's a little bit different. That went in with the project were other people who came into the area. We're going back to bringing in people from California, not necessarily friends of mine, but business associates who had a decent fair amount of money to loan or spend to make a profit, but at the same time help a city out. And they came in, and in return, it was a work in progress, as some of them said, because some of them were actually familiar with handling business in cities and what needed to be in the city set up and what didn't need to be in the city that was already set up. With that being said and everything, and covering the expenditures, the end expenditure went down to a 1.8 million from the overall total, I believe, was $6 million in excess cash, where that was handed back to providers from Europe. So it went down to a $14 million loan, as $1 million was kept away from them roughly to keep payments going in the event of low cash, as industry was brought in to facilitate and help bring up the economies in Williamsport, Jersey Shore, and Lock Haven, where they were only allowed, I think, three different factories went in a fair amount of time to move a factory and get everything into place, new facilities, modernized facilities that were more adequate for handling people, as well as safety conditions and rules and regulations by that of the government, not that of policy. Some of the other things were to update and redo some of the pavilions and reinstate certain lands to be open but not owned by the public, to go into, but they would help in the sense of if it was required to help, and that payment would be that of mainly the sale of wood and other things, but wouldn't be allowed to have a public opinion in the lands. That's pretty much the state parks and whatnots, and the opinions they were allowed to have was what was needed in the parks throughout the state of Pennsylvania, or I should say the land of Pennsylvania. That would make it better for them to want to have a picnic at whatever location of a park. And some of them went after World's End. Some of them wanted Ricketts Glen updated and brought into, not really codes, but just to make it nice, you know. Want to put a beach in, put a kayaking in, canoeing in, and bring in providers, whether independent or government, to facilitate what needed to happen. In such, most concessionary stands are government regulated, so if you wanted to go into certain parks that didn't have refreshments or hot dogs, you had to go by the rules and regulations set forth and how to maintain and all this stuff to do it. Mainly all state parks have these by the government, and some actually contract to other people to help facilitate in the sense of hire. When I say the sense of hire, I'm not talking about temp agencies. I'm talking about, if you want to work as a 16-year-old or 18-year-old inside of being a lifeguard, or, doing the concessionaries, helping out with trail cleanups and so forth. Some of it's paid, some of it's not. From 1980 to now, in the present, it's been over a 60% land and territory update of every major city, every minor city, and every mediocre city. Brought up to certain standards and such, so there's a few stragglers that have not complied with the rules and regulations that there is, and one of them just so happens to be the coal towns, in such that regulations and rules require certain workers and coal miners to update the living standard. And when I say this has to be done by the federal government or the state government, not the local government, in the sense of street conditions and other things, where the bulk of the fixes were done, even though there is still down to an 18% disadvantage to all cities. That still needs to be looked at, roughly costing about $356 million to fix within certain territories. This one that I'm talking about is actually about Lock Haven to Williamsport, including Milton and Turbeville. Why Turbeville? The streets there are pretty good. But far, sewer and plumbing and water updates have been successful. Within Pennsylvania, speaking further about rules and regulations, the European, Soviet, and Russian Catch 64 implied in Lycoming County and the Pennsylvania lands and territories of such things, of which you will see some I had involvement in, whether it was supplying or finding cash or funds for the state, and other ones where they were told to get out their lazy ruins, with the help of some of the people I brought in to learn how to facilitate within a government and be a productive employee. Because, I mean, some of it was schooling education, so AES was brought in, FEMA was brought in, not to necessarily throw cash around. Dumbest idea you can do, because FEMA's cash is not free. So since it's not a disaster zone, the overall outcome has been actually a cheaper living status in certain senses, but it still has its little opinionated in the sense of it needs for some people to, I don't want to say retire, but they just need to start picking people to replace them. Not to push anyone out of office, but the catch rule and regulation 64 is actually for wealthy people who come in, whether to live here 6 months to 8 months out of the year, or to live, make money elsewhere and come back and spend 10 to 12 years here. Allows them that no city or government, no local or state, no federal can retain them within the land of any providence or territory unless implied a criminal investigation in that of the accusations, in which getting to these accusations, this implies mainly around that of what they decided within that of representation by the state, the governor, and that of the Senate and the Congress. In this, the Congress officially signed off in 1996 the rules and regulations for Catch 64, and it mainly allowed all the new surrounding a lot of wealthy people who might be in another country who wouldn't mind spending 10 to 12 years here to relax a little bit in the sense of not being stuck inside a country. I'm gonna make another video. I think that's part 3.